This is ChangeMakers with Katie Gore, finding the right solutions for the affordable housing community.
This week's ChangeMaker is Heidi Burkhart, the President of Dane Global, a real estate services firm that has facilitated over $4 billion in transactions and has closed over 30,000 affordable housing units. Heidi has spent more than 20 years in the real estate industry, and she has used her business success and strong passion for helping others as a platform for affordable housing and economic development. Heidi, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I want to start with Dane Global, how it was started, because it's such a unique part of who you are and what you're doing. So why don't you start us there? Tell us about Dane Global.
Yeah, so Dane Global, I started in 2008, probably not the best time because that was when every market was going crazy and not in a good way. Before that, I was a broker from when I started 20 years old, so that's 2002. I basically started Dane because I had a lot of great mentors pushing me to start my own company. So it was nice to have a lot of the support that I did in the affordable housing industry to realize the new category I created in the brokerage world in New York City, being an affordable housing broker. So I had a lot of support from a lot of the various individuals like Deborah Van Amerongen, Scott Jaffe, Charlie Gendron, Ken Pagano to start my own company. So from their support, I started Dane. Not really, I think it's my naivete that I actually started it because I was only 26 years old, but happy I did. Since starting Dane in 2008, have grown it to where it is today. Again, I think the biggest thing that separates what we do and how it got started and how it keeps on growing is really our relationships with individuals. We do not concentrate just on the money, like a lot of brokers get very stereotyped into just really worrying about the last dollar. With Dane and the philosophy that I have in life in general is just really worrying about the relationships and really finding those relationships where it's a gentleman's handshake, as I call it, where you don't really need to have a signed contract to get deals done, but really just need to have honest and trustworthy people that you work with that really support you, and vice versa, you support them to keep on growing. So that's kind of the background of where Dane started from and where it's grown to. Again, it's really just been really key on relationships and really, focusing on nurturing those and growing those and supporting one another.
So when you meet people for the first time, how do you describe what you do?
It's simple, affordable housing brokerage. We are venturing into ownership as well, and I like people knowing that so they don't feel any sort of way if they find out that I do have small ownership in various deals across the country as well. But we do affordable housing brokerage. And if people don't know what brokerage means, then I just say, we assist buyers and sellers of affordable housing Section 8 buildings mostly in transacting.
And then how do you find who you're going to work with or where your markets are? What's some of the strategy? And you don't have to reveal any secret sauce here, but just trying to give people an idea of how these deals work.
No, I think it's actually important. And there is no secret sauce. Everything is always basic, and it's really execution's the key thing, when you're looking at really any industry, to be honest with you, in regards to what the secret sauce is. Our biggest thing is origination and execution. So I remember David Kidder, when I met with him a while back, one of my mentors, he had mentioned, what's your painkiller? And I was like, what the heck do you mean by painkiller? He goes, what are people going to get addicted to you by? And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, what's your specialty that people need to come back to you only for that no one else can do? And that for me was origination and execution. And because when you look at how people operate in business, it's funny because it's so simplistic to me, but it really isn't in regards to originating and canvassing and cold calling people and not having any fear of doing that. And also following up with people. It seems that following up with people is a lost art, as well as just being an honest person and trying to cold call and or approach new people and working with them. But it truly is. People have a hesitancy. People are so stuck on texting and email that they are too scared to pick up the phone anymore, or let alone just show up at someone's office to try to originate deals. And that's the stuff that I will do, or just send like handwritten letters and notes to people. Like I just had Ricky in my office make new cards for me to make sure I start doing more thank you notes in 2023, which I think is a huge part of just being a sincere person and a genuine person. So that's where we separate ourselves. And that's what I would say is our secret sauce, which is really just going back to the old school way of doing things. Especially when you get to the younger generations, they're so hooked on text and, the new age way, which is a great way. And it's hard for me to transfer into that realm. But at the same time, it's hard for them to transfer back to the old school way of just making that phone call, and or, sending a thank you note. Why I think making phone calls is such a huge aspect is emails and texts have such a different underlying tone that people start assuming the way that you're feeling in the text when it's not really how that person is feeling and or feels. And things can get snowballed into big situations and big arguments for stupid reasons. So if you pick up the phone and just talk to someone about what's going on, what are their goals, why are they upset, how can you help, that it makes it so much easier to get through. So that's the kind of stuff that, with the secret sauce and how we have grown and how we originate deals is just really just being a genuine old fashioned kind of way of doing business. Which again, could we be bigger if we did the new tech way? Probably, we could probably originate a lot more deals and probably execute. But it's just not my style. I like being more one-on-one with people and more genuine. So yeah, I think that's where, originating deals is kind of just the basic old school way of picking up the phone and sending thank you notes through snail mail.
I find this so fascinating for several different reasons. The way you started a company at age 26 to now talking about what may be considered old school or outdated cold calling. It's such an interesting journey here. And you're saying that's translated into how you do origination and execution of these deals. I mean, I was just listening to a podcast today that actually talked about digital communication and, whether you put emojis and exclamation marks in emails, and they're trying to give guidance on how we are even to communicate in this digital phase. But you're saying, hey, there's some old school ways of cold calling and writing letters that you're finding to be what? As effective or more effective? Is that what I hear you saying?
Yeah, I think it's more effective at the end of the day for relationship building. Could I get more deals as one-offs doing it the other way? Probably. But I think for relationship building where my focus is, I definitely think it's a better way to be. And it's more fulfilling. To me, there's only so much money you can accumulate really in life in regards to making it easier. And obviously you just have to be budgeting and be honest in regards to where you are in your income level, and spending habits. But, at the end of the day, relationships and memories are really what, are really special. Like you can't really, memories last longer than your money ever will in people in the way that you treat people. And to me, that's leaving a legacy through memories and good transactions and good feelings and positive aspects and happy thoughts, whatever, as cheesy as it sounds, that goes on forever versus your money can only go so far. So that's kind of how I feel in regards to just like in business and working through business, and everybody in my office, whoever works with me, even third parties, I really try to strive to make sure they have the same kind of mindset that we do on that. But yeah, I definitely feel the old school way is more effective in the long term versus, the other side of it. You hit on the emojis, which is kind of funny to me because, from my standpoint, once you're confident in who you are and what you do, and not arrogant, definitely a fine line between confidence and arrogance. But once you're confident, it's like, I really don't hold my tongue too much. It's probably a fault, but it's not, because at the same time, it's like, do you. Like I always tell my office, I'm like, don't take my template and just use my template. Like I want you to put your own voice in it. You really just have to be yourself and be genuine. And that's how I really feel. Like if people don't like you for that, then that's their problem in a way, and find the people that do appreciate you and do appreciate your sincerity. And that's who you really want to work with in business. That's just how I feel about it. I know it's probably, when you get into corporate, it's a whole different realm of like HR issues possibly. But at the same time, I think you still need to use, like, obviously don't use like bad emojis, but or bad like comedy or like jokes in emails. But at the end of the day, you still need to be yourself. So.
Well, I am raising teenagers and they often like to say, do you, boo? That's that is their phrase right now.
You, boo.
And, I appreciate their candor as a teenager, But, sometimes you kind of go, okay, yes, do you, but then you may flinch a little. But we are
That's where I
learning.
say confidence, not arrogance. I feel like,
Right.
and I guess I should add humble. Like, you have to be humbled before you have confidence too, It's funny.
Well,
It's a
we're
good one.
learning how to find our voice, and I think that's in both our personal and our
Yeah.
professional worlds. And yes, there needs to be some boundaries and humility, and even some, awareness for reading the room. But what makes us also individual in this space is who we are. So you have to figure out what that looks like and how that translates. But it's unique when you're talking about our corporate world and platform. And you seem to have other mottos that as I was reading about you guys, you have other mottos that you're also abiding by. One that I found so fascinating was live to give and give to live. Explain that to us.
That's just my life, and again, it's one of those, like, always choosing happiness is one that my friend Deborah always has told me, and it's something that became habitual in my life. Even if things went bad, it's always making sure I choose happiness. But the live to give to live is the same kind of mindset. It's kind of like when I was younger, watching Oprah back in the day, and the Oprah effect, like, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car. And she always said, you feel a lot better when you give. And it's totally true. If the more that you give out to people, the more better karma you have, the good karma you have. And I'm a huge karma person. And I think accumulating that, you always get it back tenfold for sure. It always feels good to make someone smile. It always feels good to help someone out, knowing that you also obviously have your own foundational, standpoint, and like you're securing yourself too, because there's a point where you have to make sure you give to yourself, let alone to others. And people forget about that, I think, at times. You can keep on giving to a lot of different people, but if you're not giving to yourself too, and being mindful of, your own health and your own mental, that's key as well, making sure that you give to yourself as well. But, I think that in general, the more that you give, the more that you get back. So that's one of the reasons why I do love affordable housing, is that, it's a great way to make money while doing good. And it's beautiful. It's nice to be a part of the catalyst that, spurs a property that's been dilapidated and not looked at into being, a new beautiful building through tax credits with a new buyer. It's nice to be a part of that small giving aspect, being the catalyst of that change. So, I think in life, we as humans, especially in this day and age where people like to have social media dictate a lot of their own opinions, I think it's very important to remember that at the base of everything, everybody's still just a person. Everybody is still a beautiful person in that standpoint, and to lead with love and compassion by giving. Because again, the more that you give, the more that you get back, and the more that life brings to you. So that's kind of where that all came from in a long roundabout way. But yeah, it's a big motto that we have in our office. Again, I try to make sure I surround myself with people just the same, regardless who they are working with us.
And when we talk about the deals that you are doing, just in the last year alone, you guys have closed on over $40 million in transactions. That is amazing. What do those projects look like in size or scope or region? Because that is just a phenomenal portfolio. And I'm just talking about 12 months worth or 11 months worth here.
Yeah, for me, it's funny because I'm always on to the next, so I always forget about the last deal that I did. Because in brokerage, you're only as good as your last deal is another phrase that constantly is like talked about. Section 8, people don't realize, especially if you live in New York City, you pass it all the time. So when you have Section 8 buildings, you'd be shocked at where they are in Manhattan specifically, that you walk by that you would never guess. And, Section 8 is just an apartment complex. It just means that the unit holds the Section 8, not the person through a voucher. So they've been of all different sizes. Geographically, we've done deals all the way from Denver to Tennessee to Arkansas, Texas. But our major spot is going to definitely be New York City, New York State, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. That's really where our backbone is. But anything on the East Coast is fair game. And we've done plenty all the way from Florida, all the way up to Maine. So it's kind of wherever, again, as I constantly repeating, is where our relationships want us to go is where we go. So if someone has a deal, like we closed a dear in Las Vegas with my dear friend, Wynn and his crew. And that was a really fun one to deal with because it's going to be a nice new affordable housing complex in OZ zone in Las Vegas. So, there's certain things that are just kind of weird that we get a hold of that we work on, because I would never have thought I would do a deal in Las Vegas, to be quite honest with you, but we did. But again, that's just relationship driven, that someone trusted us and appreciates who we are, and they gave us the opportunity and we were able to deliver.
Those are excellent shares, Heidi. Let's hang on for just a minute because we're going to take a break. But coming up in the second part of my conversation with Heidi Burkhart, the president of Dane Global, Heidi talks about the importance of leaders embracing vulnerability.
When you can be vulnerable and be confident in your vulnerability and have humility, to me, that's successful.
Thanks for listening to ChangeMakers with Katie Gore. To find out more about Katie, go to quadel.com. That's QUADEL.com. This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio.